All rise. The Attleboro High School Student Court is now in session. Judge Del Pozo presiding. All participants and observers remain standing until the judge is seated. Okay. Everyone now may be seated with the exception of the jury.
At this time, the bailiff will now swear in the jury.
Jury, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I swear or affirm
I swear or affirm
that everything I see or hear in youth court today
that everything I see or hear in youth court today
shall be kept confidential.
shall be kept confidential.
Jury, do you swear to objectively weigh issues in this case and render a disposition according to the evidence and guidelines of youth court?
Yes, I do.
Okay, you guys may be seated.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I would first like to thank you for your time and attention today. I would like to remind you that you are here in the interest of serving our school community and achieving justice in the society in which we live. It is in the best interest of our society if you are fair and impartial in your deliberations here tonight. The function of the jury in the youth court is to decide the appropriate disposition for an offender after examining the evidence in the case and hearing from the school advocate, student advocate, and respondent. This decision should be based on the goals of sentencing in youth court, specific deterrence of other potential offenders, holding the youth accountable for their actions, rehabilitation, and repairing the harm that was done to the community. One of the purposes of youth court is to allow offenders to be judged by a jury of their peers. The right to have a jury of one's peers sit in judgment is one of the basic constitutional rights in our democracy. As jurors of youth court, you will each have the following duties and obligations. Be fair and impartial by basing your decision on evidence in the particular case and not irrelevant factors. Settle disputed issues of fact presented by the advocates. Avoid discussing the case with other jurors until deliberations begin. Communicate with only the judge and clerk by way of written notes. Follow the court's instructions. Deliberate with other jurors by candidly expressing your opinion as to what the sentence should be and justify the sentence. Identify what harm was done and how it should be repaired. Reach a unanimous verdict as to the appropriate sentence. Inform the clerk by way of written note to the foreperson that a verdict has been reached. And announce the verdict in open court through the foreperson.
Participants in the case 222301 involving Benjamin Bonville, please rise. Will the school advocate please state your full name?
Ethan Miller.
Will the student advocate please state your full name?
And I say.
Will the student respondent please state your full name?
Benjamin Bonville.
You may now be seated.
May the student advocate present your opening statement.
Good afternoon. Mr. Bonville was referred by Assistant Principal Pavlisco for skipping Miss T.B. College class. Benjamin is not a recurring offender for skipping class, but the day he decided to skip, he missed a lab where his lab partner had to do the whole thing himself.
Thank you. May the school advocate present your opening statement.
Since Ben skipped class, it forced Miss Tiefendollar to have to stay after school in order to reset and clean the lab. It also slowed down the class's progression on the project they're working on since Ben couldn't contribute and do his part. Not only is the teacher affected, but also the admin and house office staff that have to monitor the attendance and track down students. From the school's point of view, Mr. Bonville has contributed to a serious problem in the school. Students wandering the halls creates a safety and security risk. It may seem like a small act, but it creates a real disruption for the staff. Please keep this in mind when going over Mr. Bonville's disposition.
Thank you. Does the student advocate wish to ask any questions to the respondent?
Yes.
Respondent, please make your way to the witness stand. Respondent, please raise your right hand. Do you understand that by being a participating respondent at this youth court, you are acknowledging wrongdoing for your actions?
Yes, I do.
Do you swear to provide an accurate and truthful testimony of your actions that will be based upon your personal knowledge and any statements you may have made?
Yes, I do.
Do you understand and intend to follow the rules and regulations of the youth court proceedings you have chosen to take part in?
Yes, I do.
You may now be seated.
Mr. Bonville, will you please explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury why you chose to skip Ms. Tiefenthaler's class?
The day that I had skipped class, I had many things going on. I had 2 unit tests that day, and I was really stressed out from the morning. I woke up and I had to rush to school, and I had worn shorts and slides, which aren't allowed in the lab. I did not have phone service, so there was no way for me to get a change of clothes or shoes. The whole day was really stressful. We were scheduled to do a lab that day, and I couldn't handle the pressure because I was unprepared.
How do you feel now about skipping the class?
I feel really sorry for Miss T. She was one of my favorite teachers, and I know there was a better way to handle the situation, and she deserves an apology from me.
Thank you, Mr. Bonville.
Does the defense rest?
Thank you.
Does the school's advocate wish to ask any questions at this time?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Bonville, after you skipped class, were you aware of how this affected Ms. Tiefenthaler?
The next day, when I went to class, I realized how much it affected Miss T when she explained that she would have to set up the lab after school for me.
What did you do instead of going to class?
I went to the bathroom and hid in the last stall,
So what exactly was the purpose of skipping class?
so that I could study for another test I have the next block, and I also did not feel comfortable explaining to Miss T that I was unprepared for the lab, because I felt like I would disappoint her, and I was already stressed out.
Do you now realize the harm you have caused?
Yes, I do.
I have no more questions for the respondent, Your Honor.
Does the prosecution rest?
Yes.
The school's advocate may now present its closing arguments and sentence recommendations to the jury.
Mr. Bonville didn't think of the possible consequences of his actions before he decided to skip class. He now understands that his actions have an effect on the people around him, and considering his circumstances, we all have off days and are sometimes unable to participate to the best of our ability due to stress and other issues. Mr. Bonville, I understand that you feel overwhelmed, but you just can't skip class. It affects your peers, your teachers, and also does more harm than good. Hope that you've learned from your mistakes, and this experience was a one-time mistake. Although it was a mistake nonetheless. In order to amend the situation, I recommend that the respondent receives a mediation meeting with the teacher, as well as receive extra help to catch up on class time he missed during X block. I also recommend that the respondent receives 2 hours worth of jury duty.
Thank you. The student's advocate may now present its closing arguments and sentence recommendations to the jury.
Mr. Bonville has shown remorse and taken accountability. He understands that his actions have multiple consequences, which affected not only his lab partner, but Ms. Tiefenthaler as well. While going over the different disposition options, keep in mind that Mr. Bonville is also a student, just like yourself. As I can imagine, everyone in the room has at some point felt overwhelmed at school. Mr. Bonville knows that what he did was incorrect, but at that moment, he did not believe that there was any other option. I would like to recommend that as Mr. Bonville's disposition, he is required to apologize to Ms. Tiefenthaler by a verbal apology.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you must now deliberate and determine an appropriate disposition. Again, I ask that you each be fair and impartial, and also keep in mind, you must find evidence believable or credible to rely on it. Feel free to express and explain your opinions, but please do not force them upon others. You should reach a unanimous verdict as to a sentence, which you will inform the clerk by way of a written note. Please keep in mind the goals of youth court, which are to deter the offender and others from future harmful acts, to hold the offender accountable for his or her actions, to repair the harm that was done to the victim and the community, and restitution to the victim for stolen or damaged property, and the rehabilitation of the offender. Please escort everyone out of the room for deliberation.
At this time, the court will now be cleared in order for the jury to deliberate. You may follow me.
Your Honor.
Jury, you may now begin your deliberation.
Okay, so what are the facts and circumstances of this case?
So I believe that Ben Bonville had skipped class because he didn't feel comfortable telling Miss T that he was unprepared for the lab, causing him to miss the lab, resulting in his lab partner working alone.
He also had many tests that day that were causing him a lot of stress.
He had mentioned that the reason he was unprepared was because he was late to school.
Yes, but he also mentioned that he hid in the bathroom to avoid going to class.
But Ben also said that he was using that time to study for his test that he had the next block.
I think that because of all the tests he had and the fact that he was late, it's really stressed out Ben, so we should take that into consideration.
I agree with that. We also have to consider that Ben did not reach out to the teacher to try to solve this issue.
Yeah, but someone that's been in like a similar situation, sometimes we feel that we have no voice and don't feel comfortable going to teachers.
I agree with that. He did say that he had a lot of tests that day and the classroom environment was not good because he felt uncomfortable.
I also think that we should consider that Ben is a good student. He has no history of doing this before. He also chose to come to youth court today to show us his side of the story. He also seemed pretty sorry.
Yes, he does seem genuinely sorry.
So who was affected or harmed by his actions and how were they affected?
I think that Miss Tiefenthaler, the teacher, was affected, but I also think his classmate that he worked with was affected.
Yes, they were. Would the teacher be open to working with this student? I feel Ben meeting with this teacher and resolving the issue by communicating what is wrong is the most important thing to fix the issue.
Yes, I think that Miss Tiefenthaler said that she would be fine with having a mediation with Ben during an X block or something.
That's good. What has Ben done to make up for this behavior, though?
I think that the disposition that we give to Ben will show us how he will make up for his behavior upon completion.
How does Ben feel about his behavior though? Does he seem sorry?
I think we can all agree and discuss before that he does seem pretty sorry.
How did Ben explain his behavior?
I think Ben explained his behavior by admitting what he did was wrong, and he also explained when, how, and why he skipped.
I agree.
Ben seems very sorry, and because of the environment that he was in, it led him to become more stressed, and I believe that that would be really effective.
Yes, I agree. He seems genuine in his apology, and since he came here today, it shows he wants to make it right.
So what does Ben still need to do to make amends for his actions, and what do we think is a proper disposition for him?
Like I said, coming from someone who's been in a similar situation, I really think that making amends with the teacher and having a meeting with them would be very beneficial in reestablishing a good relationship between him and his teacher.
I agree. A single meeting during X-Block would be greatly helpful, and possibly lower the chance of this reoccurring again. Maybe we could also assign Ben extra help during X-Block on even days until he's caught up.
Yes, that sounds good to me.
Me as well.
Do we all agree that sentencing Ben to a mediation with the teacher during X-Block and sentencing to extra help is the right disposition?
Yes.
Has the jury reached a consensus and written down their deliberation?
Yes.
Yes.
The jury has reached their deliberation. You may all enter the courtroom. Honorable Judge Del Pozo is now entering. Everyone please rise. You may now be seated.
Has the jury reached a deliberation?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is this a fair and accurate copy of the disposition, and if there are multiple copies, does this reflect the original copy?
Yes, Your Honor.
At this time, may the respondent please rise. The jury has reached a verdict. You are now assigned to complete mediation with Ms. Tiefenthaler during X-Block and receive extra help during X-Block on even days until you are all caught up. I think this sentence is fair and appropriate for the offenses committed here. We all have to understand that society has rules to protect all of us, and that even though we are young, we have obligations to follow those rules. I want to remind you that besides the victim of this crime, there are other people who were hurt or affected by your actions, such as your parents and family. I listened carefully to your testimony today, and I believe you are truly sorry for your actions and that you have learned a valuable lesson from this experience. I am confident that you will complete your community service obligations and fulfill any special conditions imposed upon you, and thereafter you will be an asset to the community. Are you willing to follow through with the disposition as signed?
Yes, I am.
Being there no further business before the youth court, I hereby declare youth court adjourned.